Hi, I'm Andrew Trendle. You're watching NME, and we're here.
Dave Gahan. Hello.
Dave Gahan.
Yeah.
From Depeche Mode in Berlin. How you doing today, Dave?
Pretty good. Yeah, not bad.
Memento Mori. Memento Mori.
You said that right. It's like I have to remember like Marta Salogni, who is mixing the record right now in London. It's Salogni, you know, but for a long time I was saying Salogni. And so I FaceTimed her a little bit earlier and I was like, and she said, no, it's Salogni. And she's Italian. But she worked on the album with us, with James Ford producing as well. And it was a great team. They worked really well together. And Martin and I kind of got on really well, just kind of got on with the work. And it was fun. Didn't feel like we overworked anything. Which I can't always say about when I work on a Depeche record. It's not always that. I mean, it sounds weird, but it was easy to make, and it might have been just, I don't know, the time that we were doing it together, the team, you know, was relatively small. But yeah, we just got on with it. I mean, a lot of the songs for this record were written over the last couple of years, so. Especially from Martin's, you know, he'd been demoing for a while, and I think he was just kind of waiting for me to come back to the fold, maybe. And, you know, we talked about that at the end of last year, doing something together, and then sort of talked about it more seriously in January, and here we are, got a finished record, which I didn't expect to happen, really. It's not something I dived into, I gotta say. At first I put up quite a bit of resistance, like just kind of, I don't know if I still want to do this, you know, all the usual kind of stuff, but there was a bit more of that than usual. And I think that was a lot to do with the pandemic and being home for much longer and being around my family and friends and starting to, even though it's through the pandemic, but coming out of that and going like, what do I want to do with my life? And I think that's the sort of existential question that a lot of people have been asking themselves.
Yeah.
I certainly have a lot in the last few years, but here I am again, you know. I dived in and now I'm swimming in Depeche Mode again, and I'm really pleased with what we've done with the record. So hopefully, Marta's she's mixing, and she already had got, by the time we spoke this morning, she'd already had a few songs mixed. By the end of this week, in fact at the weekend when I'm back in New York, I should have something to listen to, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the journey back to Depeche Mode there, which is interesting, because the last time we spoke was just before Imposter was coming out. Okay. And you talked about how the Spirit tour, you came off that and the whole machinery of Depeche Mode was kind of grinding you down. And not grinding you down, but you were like, oh, I don't want to do that again.
No, I mean, the wheels were coming off for me too as well. It wasn't just, it wasn't really, you know, I kind of pushed it to the limit for myself with those performances, and I didn't make it any easier on myself, kind of thing. But you know, I came away from that a bit shot and just kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Not because it wasn't great, it was great, but it was kind of, you climb that mountain every time and you get to this point, it's just kind of like, so this is it, you know, like this is the best it's ever going to get. Why don't we just leave it here? You know, it's like, you know, that happens, that's happened a lot over the years. So the last thing in the world I would want to do is make a record that I didn't feel that was relevant and that was to where we're at, the way Martin and I feel about each other, working together. That had to be, for me, an enjoyable experience. I didn't want to slog through a record together, wondering how it's going to turn out, what the politics are involved in making that record, and then, you know, also commencing on some huge world tour to promote the album and to do the whole thing in very Depeche Mode style, or what that's become. I didn't want to do that unless I really felt 100% sure that it was something I wanted to. And I'm still not there yet. So I would say I'm about 75%, which is good. It's better than zero.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't at zero, but I was definitely down there in the 25%.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me,
I'd take
as
75.
you did, you know, when I did that Imposter record, which, you know, we recorded as well before the pandemic and didn't get to do anything with that really until, you know, we were coming out at the end of that stuff. And that was challenging in itself, just to kind of try and put something together on a very small scale compared to what this is. So who knows what we have in store for us. Memento Mori is really, you know, it really kind of sums up that, really, you know. Remember that you must die. So what you do here today, you got to kind of embrace it. And today, being with Depeche Mode the next couple of years. So, yeah.
Well, what can you tell us? Obviously, this record's genesis was about 2 years ago. What can you tell us about the interaction between yourself, Martin, and Fletch during those pandemic years? And what was it like to put together a Depeche Mode record during such turbulent times?
The last time that we were all together, the three of us, was over Zoom, accepting being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, ironically. Probably the last band that they wanted to have in there, but they had to give it to us in the end, which was kind of nice in itself. You know, the feeling of all those wannabe rock and rollers looking down on us in disdain of like, this is not a rock and roll band. I mean, that had been the dispute for years, but, you know, I think that's had to change. But anyway, here we were on Zoom together and we did this thing, accepting our thing. And it was fun. It was actually funny. And we all kind of dropped right back into place. Like, these guys I've grown up with, you know. I first met them probably, I was maybe about to turn 18 years old. When I think about that, it's horrifying. Actually, I've spent so much of my life with them. But, you know, Martin and I started work on this record way before Fletch passed away.
Yeah.
It was the last thing we expected to happen. I mean, even Alan, who was in the band, of course, for the first 10 years, pretty much, you know, he was like, and then there was two, you know, he sent me a text, but he made some comment as well, like most people did to me. We all thought Fletch would outlive all of us, especially in our kind of lifestyles. Fletch was probably the most, let's just say, the least of all of us in terms of excesses.
Yeah.
And so that was always the going joke, was like, Fletch is probably going to outlive all of us, you know. Oh, he's still here, isn't he? And now he's not. Yeah. And it still doesn't feel kind of real. And when we were in the studio, Martin and I, over the last couple of months, you know, on and off, that was odd. Because we had already started recording, like I said, and he was supposed to come and join us, and he'd sit there and he'd listen and he'd make his comments and, you know, say his things, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, you know, and I missed that.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not until you lose someone that you realise these things. So, you know, and that's really what this record from start to finish kind of. And it's not because Fletch passed. We were already in this place of writing these songs, which coincidentally, a few that I'd written that mine helped me to complete, and then all the songs that Martin had written. We were falling in the same place. It was all this thing of like, I belong here in this world, in this universe, and then by the end of it, the record, it kind of gets to this point of like, but what am I supposed to do? You know, and what are we supposed to do with it? Because we can't fucking figure it out, can we, together, that's for sure. The one thing I can do with Martin is make a record like this, and we can make music together, and then we can go do our thing, which hopefully brings people together.
Yeah.
We were talking about this in the van on the way over today. Like, you know, you put on the news in the morning, he said, I made the mistake, Martin said, I made the mistake, the guy in the hotel bought me a copy of the New York Times. I made the mistake of like reading some stuff in there. And I was like, yeah, that's a bad idea. You know, it's like, it's just all too much, isn't it? It's all too much for everyone. You have to kind of find a place for yourself somehow. And I guess, you know, this is what it is for us right now. It's making another record, which we've done. And we're going to go out and perform on these stages, which I don't know what that's going to be like. I don't know what that's going to be like without Fletch there. You know, listening to him ranting and shouting at someone down the hallway, so, you know, before a show, or, you know, saying the wine's not right, or that, you know, all the shit that Fletch would do, which I already miss a lot.
Well, that's it. So obviously the album title was decided before Fletch died. The songs were written before Fletch died.
He never got to hear any of it, which is really sad to me, because there are songs on this record that I know where he would be like, this is the best thing we've had in years. You know, I can hear his voice, and I can also hear him saying, like, does every song have to be about death? You know?
I would ask, like, has Fletcher's death coloured your relationship to these songs, or changed how you might have viewed them, maybe?
Some of them, yeah. Certainly when I went back, say one of them there was just a scratch vocal or whatever that had been put on there, and I wanted to do the vocals properly. Yeah, there was definitely different thoughts going through my mind, and had some of the weird cinematic sort of landscape to the sound of the record has, when you kind of think about all this stuff, about how fleeting and cruel life can be, and also how wonderful and joyful it can be, all in the same day, you know? And that's all kind of we really have, isn't it? It's like you can always think about what you're going to be doing next week, but Fletch just fucking died, you know? It's just literally got that phone call, and I was going to be seeing him. The last time I saw Fletch was at a concert I did with Soul Savers at Westminster Hall in London. And he came along with his good friend, his childhood friend, Rob Andrews. And we got to talk a little bit, thank God. So that's the last time I saw him. You know, Martin didn't get to do that with his old school friend, you know. I will forever wish I'd been a little bit kinder to Fletch. As I go forward, and I'll try and remember that with people that I meet in the future too. I was always a bit of a dick with him. He was always a bit of a dick with me too, and that's the relationship we had. It was always a bit, you know. That was what was good about it though as well. Yeah. And he also would be the first person to ring me up if I was like going through something. He'd be the first person to call me saying, "You all right, Dave? I know you're not feeling so good." He was that guy too. So. Yeah.
Do you think that'll change the way you play then? Just thinking.
We're not. I mean, look. Fletch did his thing on stage, but he actually didn't do that much musically. But he was Fletch, and that won't be there anymore. And we can't replace that. We can't put another Fletch there, because there was only one of a kind. Most of my mates, when they come back at the shows, it's the first thing they'd say to me, go, "Yeah, it's a good gig." Yeah. Fuck, I can't take my eyes off the geezer over. What is he doing? That was part of Fletch's thing. And he did it really well. So we won't try and fill that hole. You know, we'll figure it out between myself, Martin, Peter and Christian.
Well, looking forward to it. We'll see you in some stadiums, maybe Glastonbury?
I don't know. There's a lot on the cards for the following year as well. You know, I've seen these big spreadsheets being put slowly in front of me. The one in 2023 is big enough already. So, yeah, there will be more, I'm sure.
Amazing. Dave, really looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Mate.